I want to take you by the hand and say, listen, there is a better way. I know you feel like saving $5 a week isn't going to add up, but I'm here to tell you it's going to add up. You hear them all the time, these money myths of save for a rainy day, to get rich, you got to step on people. Like, we hear all these things. No, we got to change our mindset. We got to start your $5 a week, a month, whatever it is. Let's start somewhere. And that's what I want to be for this next generation, just like you.
Do you think money takes up more life space than it should? On this show, we discuss with and share stories from artists, authors, entrepreneurs, and advisors about how they mindfully minimize the time and energy spent thinking about money. Join your host, Jonathan Dio, and learn how to put money in its place and get more out of life.
Hey, welcome back. On this episode of the Mindful Money Podcast, I'm chatting with Jason Schappert. Jason is a serial entrepreneur and financial technology visionary dedicated to empowering individuals to achieve financial freedom. He's the founder of Moola, an AI-driven investment platform that simplifies complex financial concepts and provides personal insights and recommendations to help users make informed investment decisions, among lots of other things. He's a passionate advocate for financial literacy, believes that everyone deserves access to the tools and knowledge necessary to achieve financial security. His mission, similar to my own, is to empower the next generation to take control of their financial futures and create financial freedoms and live lives free of financial stress. Jason, welcome to the Mindful Money Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, my friend. Glad to be here. Thank you for the wonderful intro. Reading this, going, wow, this sounds good, right? Wow, thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's hope you live up to the hype.
There's a lot of pressure, right? There's a lot of pressure. So very thankful to be here and get this on the schedule. So thank you for that.
So I've done 2 interviews with some different kinds of apps and financial literacy tools and investment tools in the past. So I like doing it.
Sure.
Before we get too into it, tell us where is home and where are you calling it from?
Yep. So I'm in Naples, Florida. It's my paradise. You have your paradise. We have our paradise here. We just swim through our paradise with the humidity and everything else.
Did you grow up in Florida?
I grew up in Florida. I grew up in Ocala, which is like north central Florida. So that's rare to see someone who's like, born and raised kind of Florida guy.
So born and raised. I've never known anyone that stayed either there or in Chicago. People in Chicago leave for different reasons. But
That's right. That's right. Very rare.
What did you learn about money, entrepreneurship, as a kid growing up in Ocala?
In Ocala. Yeah. So Ocala, to give you an example, the whole economy of Ocala is horse racing, believe it or not. So if you watch the Kentucky Derby this year, 18 of the 20 horses had some connection to Ocala. Born there, trained there, their trainers are from there, something along those lines. So that is the whole industry in Ocala. We were not in the horse industry. My parents were actually in pest control. And I learned so much killing bugs with dad. It sounds so silly, but just a young kid, 10, 11 years old, dad, take me on the pest control route. You're a sweaty bug guy covered in chemicals. You got to convince somebody to let you into their house, right? I learned about customer service and sales real quick and how to be persuasive, but it taught me so much, like growing up in a family business. And my mom and dad still do that to this day. It is still just a mom and pop business. They absolutely love it. But I saw very quickly that I really didn't want to work for somebody. I wanted to set out on my own. And I loved the entrepreneurial type dream.
I had no intention to go down this path. I didn't know what your background was, but I'm excited to hear that. I want to be careful what I say here. So my dad was very entrepreneurial, and he ran his own things, did his own things, and that gave me the bug for sure. But he wasn't very good at it. So were they good at it?
Good enough, we'll say, right? I didn't go to private school or anything like that, but good enough. And my dad calls it a blessing now that his son has exceeded him financially and everything else. And that's how it's supposed to be, right? Our kids are supposed to do better than us eventually to feed the next generations and such, that they're still doing it. Most importantly, my parents are very passionate about it. And as we listened to some of the previous shows, exactly. Who loves killing bugs? Well, my dad does. My mom loves talking about it. So
that's awesome. So I'm wondering about how did the entrepreneurial spirit, it seeps into you.
Totally.
You're born and raised with it. What kind of personal financial lessons did that teach you though? What did you pull out of that?
So actually a big one. So while my dream was not to be a bug man, my dream was actually to be a pilot. But I realized very quickly that becoming a pilot was going to be very, very expensive. There are some great aviation colleges, and they'll happily give you 200 or 300 grand worth of debt to go do it. And the back of my mind, I'm going, I don't think that's the brightest way to do it. And I began working in dad's business, saving money, and upselling his customers. Hey, you need your driveway pressure washed, by the way. And I'll do that for you for $40. I can come back this Saturday, and begin saving money to pay for flight lessons. Saving is usually such a burden for people, but as a 14, 15-year-old kid, I had a goal in mind. I was bit by the aviation bug. Saving was awesome because every dollar I saved meant I could go to the airport.
Yeah. Yeah. Bizarre. So that wasn't like an element of your mom's and dad's business.
No.
It was something you said you did on the side. Hey, it looks like your driveway needs to be done. What kind of odd things did you add? You upsell paint jobs?
Didn't do any painting, but like the stuff no one wanted to do, pressure washing, pulling weeds, all stuff that no one wants to do in Florida because it's too hot. I'm like, I'll do all the outside stuff, right? I'm a young kid. That's okay. So we just, any odd job we could do to pay for flight lessons.
It's important, that goal.
Yeah.
It's important to kind of have the thing in front of you, the carrot. Did parents apply any stick to go with that? I mean, you had the carrot with the goal, but did they tell you had to save? Did they explain the consequences of not saving, or did you not learn those?
I grew up in a different household. I kind of grew up in a save for a rainy day kind of household, which, you know what, there's good and bad to that. But I also believe if you think save for a rainy day, the rainy day is going to come too, right? I know you're very big into mindset. So I'm a balance between I'm going to save, but it's not for a rainy day. It's for these things. So it was taking the things I saw my parents successful with and applying those. But I also got to see their mistakes. Like I got to see the lean months when we were just having TV dinners for dinner instead of country fried steak, or whatever it was. Like we didn't grow up even middle class. It were just mom and dad killing bugs. It wasn't a luxurious lifestyle by any means. Country fried steak was the big night.
My father's favorite meal when we go out is country fried steak. I don't think I've ever heard anyone reference it in my life until today.
Oh, that's funny.
That's where I'm from too. I totally get country fried steak. It's a truck stop thing across the country. That
was the luxury meal, man. That with mashed potatoes.
Yeah, exactly. That is so true. That's crazy. So I want to get to Moola. Before we do that, what did you do give us the arc? What did you do before, and how did that, I knew you were a pilot, and how does that lead into creating Moola?
Wow. So I realized I didn't want to be an airline pilot. My dream was to be a military pilot, but I was too tall, actually. I did the ASVAB test, was going to go in the military as an aviator, already a pilot. I'm 6'4", and they measure, it's not so much a height restriction, it's your seated height. They got to be able to eject you out of there and not make you an amputee on the way out. So my legs were too long. My torso was fine, my legs were too long, so I couldn't be a pilot. Thought at this time, I'm a flight instructor. So I'm teaching people to fly, and I'm very young. I'm 18, 19 years old. I've got this baby face, and everyone's like, there's no way you're going to teach me to fly. Like you look way too young. You can't even drive. So I ended up getting all these, I don't know how to politely say it, but kind of like the reject students. And I don't mean that in a negative term. I mean that as this person has 60 hours and it normally takes around 40 hours to learn to fly, and they haven't even done it yet. Right? Someone told them they'll never be able to land. They'll never be a pilot. They'll never be these things. And I'm like, no one else will fly with me. I'll take these students. So I began working with these difficult cases, and I had to take these complex situations like landing an airplane and working around weather and making smart decisions and break them into plain English to help these students. And every single one of those who the world would have called rejects, never be a pilot, are pilots today, simply because someone, and I'm not trying to brag on myself, I'm just saying, this has happened to all of us. Someone took them by the hand and said, hey, this is the way to go. And I'm going to mentor you, and we're going to do this thing together. And that teacher's heart is what I really saw there. And I said, okay, how can I make a living teaching aviation? About this time, YouTube was starting to get big, like not owned by Google yet, but starting to come up and get big. A little company called GoPro in your neck of the woods was starting to make these action cameras. And I said, wow, I'm going to put these GoPro cameras, I'm going to put them in my airplane, and I'm going to film my flight lessons, just like if those students were there next to me. I'll leave the left seat empty. I'm going to sit in the co-pilot seat because I'm the instructor. And just like Jonathan was there with me, I'm going to start teaching, just talking out loud. And I began to edit those lessons and sell them online to people. And that's what grew into our actual aviation business that we just made an exit from 16 years later.
Wow.
Yeah.
So do you still teach?
I still do teach. Yeah, a little bit here and there, kind of helping out friends and everything else. And I'm still a little involved in the business that we sold. It's a passion, but really teaching is a passion. And that's kind of the segue into how Moola came about. Everyone's like, well, how did you get involved in this? Well, the truth of the matter is I've been broke twice. And by broke, I mean like tow truck sitting in the driveway kind of broke. Like you can't go outside and open your garage because he's coming for it kind of broke. And I'm a teacher. I dropped out of college 3 times because I just wanted to do the fun aviation classes. I didn't pay attention to pre-calculus, all this other stuff I wish I would have done. Like I learned a lot the rough way. And I want to share with people like, hey, listen, there is a better way. Back to the aviation. I want to take you by the hand and say, listen, there is a better way. I know you feel like saving $5 a week isn't going to add up, but I'm here to tell you it's going to add up. And we need to change your mindset around some of these things. Like you hear them all the time, these money myths of save for a rainy day, to get rich, you got to step on people. Like we hear all these things. No, we got to change our mindset. We got to start your $5 a week, a month, whatever it is. Let's start somewhere. And that's what I want to be for this next generation, just like you.
Yeah. So you talk about, and it makes some sense. I talk about the parallels between money or investing and health. You talk about the parallels between piloting and investing.
Totally.
Can you lay that out?
Absolutely. That's actually a big nexus around Moola. So in my airplane, in front of me, and I'm sorry for so many airplane analogies, there'll be a lot of them this episode, so I apologize.
We expect
exactly.
It's good.
In my airplane, I have 6 instruments in front of me. And on those 6 instruments, I can tell what just happened 30 seconds ago, what's happening right now, and what's likely to happen in the next 30 seconds if I keep doing what I'm doing. Where is the same instrument panel in our finances, in our banking, right? Why is online banking so crusty and ugly? Why are a lot of these self-directed brokerage firms just difficult? Like, why do I have to click 4 times to see my unrealized gains? By the way, what are unrealized gains, right? Like that's the kind of investor we're going after here, is to start with them really where they're at so they can get to your level as well and kind of pass them off, but they have to start somewhere. And that's where the financial literacy comes into it. Because if you and I walk down the street and did the man on the street interview, what are unrealized gains? They're going to go, I have no idea what you're talking about, right? What is dollar cost averaging? Tell me about compound interest. Like these are things that you and I have used to leverage and create wealth, not only for yourself, but for others. And most of modern America doesn't even know what those terms are.
Yeah. I mean, before you launched Moola and probably since, can you just give us lay out the groundwork of sort of that financial literacy negative statistics? Yeah. You mentioned compound interest. That's one of the 4 big questions. And you're right. Like 75% of people have no idea what that is. Like, which
don't
is
even understand it. And you're exactly right. The stats I saw were more like 80%, but literally don't have an emergency fund. We just experienced a hurricane that just went through in one of our properties, and we lost the AC unit because it flooded. It was $14,000. Like it's a little townhome. It's not a big mansion or anything like that. $14,000 because we needed an outdoor unit and the AC handler as well. Where would most people get that from? Right. And I'm not trying to brag by any means. I'm just trying to say that if we don't have an emergency fund set aside, surprises are going to happen. And 75% of Americans don't even have that.
There's a bumper sticker that describes that, shit happens.
Exactly. But then how they pay for it. And then look at our interest rate environment. So they go out and they get probably an unsecured loan at 10, 11% and don't realize they're behind the power curve before they even start on that loan.
So how does all that play into, or how do you then translate that into a lesson on Moola?
Yeah, great question. So Moola's really twofold. I know we're talking a lot about the investing, but there's also the banking side of things and the Moola savings side of things, where we essentially made a beautiful electronic version of what my mother still does to this day, which is the envelope budgeting system. We call them pockets, but everybody puts their money in their pockets and saves for those concert tickets and saves for the private school education. My mom, I love her. She still has cash in envelopes. Can't even make it up. We're digitizing all that. I hope my mom will get on board here eventually, right? But within that, we believe that knowledge isn't power. It's just potential power. And I didn't say that. Jim Rohn said it many, many years ago. We all know somebody who has all that wisdom and all those headlines and buzzwords, but can't even apply it themselves. They'll tell you how to fix your marriage, but their marriage is all out of whack, whatever that may be, right? Knowledge isn't power, it's potential power. So what we want to do is create the financial incentives around a lot of these things. So right now we're working with some partners to, hey, if we complete this course on understanding automobile loans, right? We're working with some partners that can give you a quarter or a half point off your interest rate. Like these are the kinds of incentives we're looking to do that. And by the way, these loan companies, I can't name any names just yet because it's not official. They want sophisticated people. They want educated people coming in that aren't going to be delinquent or don't know how to manipulate the collections agencies or whatever that is. So we're looking to really not just educate, but empower that education and show them, back to your point, you use that carrot at the end of all this.
Yep. So do you have any of those partnerships, not necessarily with lenders, but you have partners with banking, partners with lending, partners with investing? Yep. And that's the goal? That's the sort of the business model?
You're exactly right. So we're working on some partnerships. I mean, obviously, if you go to Moola, you're going to see the savings mechanism, the investing mechanism, and everything else. But then you'll also see the different partners that are underlied in there. We're currently working on some insurance partners in there as well, just to help out, again, on the auto insurance. People don't understand the different types of coverage. The most important and thankfully popular video in there right now is understand your credit score. And people want to gamify it. They want to look at all this stuff. And I don't totally agree with the nation's credit scoring system. I think it's slightly archaic and everything else. However, it's the rules we have to play within, right? So let's play within the rules. That's what we're given. So just teaching that and helping people understand utilization and everything else and the impact that just missing one payment can really have and how it's going to trickle down. And it's not just people see it as a score, but what they forget is when you go to get that mortgage, that 30-day missed payment on your Barclays card could have cost you, an interest point, which over the course of a mortgage is 10, 20, 30, 40 grand for one 30-day missed payment.
I'm going to apologize in advance. I'm going to ask you I think this may be a tough question. How do you vet? Back in the day, NerdWallet was a great source of information. And, I wrote for NerdWallet, and then NerdWallet became sort of an avenue for credit card companies to sell credit cards.
It's a safe word. Yeah.
Commercialize, which is fine, right? You got to monetize it somehow. I understand that. And I still love NerdWallet. It's nothing against NerdWallet. It's just sometimes you got to ask the question, how do you make sure that the products that get through to the customer on Moola isn't going to take advantage of that customer?
Sure. So first off, Moola is actually not making money off of those relationships. We make our money on a $5.99 monthly fee just to use the app. It's essentially where we make our money. Make our money from that. But
good answer.
I did the same thing in our aviation business. And I won't name names, but when we grew our aviation business very large, there were a lot of companies wanting to throw merch at you, throw products at you. You deal with it too all the time. People want to sponsor this. I'll throw you this, wear this shirt, whatever it is. At the end of the day, this isn't NASCAR. We are not for sale. We're not going to put everything on up there. We're going to work with the people that we know, we like, that we trust, and have the same mission. Because again, I'm not going to name names, but there are plenty of companies out there, big banks, big companies that say they want financial literacy, but in actuality, their P&L does very well on people who remain ignorant. Is the unfortunate truth behind all this.
And they're selling products. Their literacy is a path to product sales.
You are spot on.
So many times. That's what I see all the time. Yeah. So I love the fact that it's a monthly fee. Or is it just a monthly fee?
I love the using the app. $5.99 a month.
If you're not paying a monthly fee and you're receiving some kind of benefit, you have to realize that you're the product.
Yeah, and that's so true.
And understand that you're the product is critical. And I think there's a lot of people that don't get that. So I love the fact that you're charging it that way. What's the long-term vision? What's the hope?
So in our last business, we made an exit to private equity. And the fun avenue I want to go this way is actually I want to do an IPO. I want to take it all the way up and through. I'm being very, very serious with you. And I want to take the Moola members along the journey with us, right? How cool will it be? This is the investing app that you're using for investing. And in 5, 6, 7 years, you see my wife and I up there ringing the bell one day. And those are the two people who taught you what all of this even means and how to read the financial news and everything else. And now they have an opportunity to invest in the app that got them where they are financially. That is the serious vision. I can be a little audacious sometimes. That is the dream.
So I guess I know how this works in sort of a tech-ish company. You have kind of a roadmap of product and partnership. What's the roadmap look like over 6 months, and then look at it over 3 years? What's going to be there in 3 years? 6
months, we definitely know. And just being honest with you, even 3 years out, we are such a customer-focused type organization. We're not perfectly letting the customer steer it, right? This is still, it's a democracy in a way, but at the end of the day, we still have to say, no, the ship's going this way. You can't be a pilot and ask everybody, all 300 people on board, where do you guys want to go today, right? We have to know where we're going, but I can accommodate you along that journey. as well is what we're really looking for as far as that goes. So continuing to roll out more investing tools. The next big thing for us, the next 3 months, is 529 plans, which again, word on the street, no one's going to even know what a 529 college savings plan is. And by the way, you and I know this, but the average person doesn't. That doesn't get used. Roll it into an IRA, preferably a Roth IRA, right? And by the way, what's an IRA? Some people are going to even ask. It's crazy terms you use every single day. So helping people start for success that way. You know, in our demographic that we're targeting and currently have, it's a 30-year-old nurse. Like, she's doing great. She's making $60,000 a year, but she doesn't understand why she has more month than money. She doesn't understand where her money's going. So that's where the Moola banking side of things comes in to say, okay, here's where we're draining money. Here's where money's going out. Do you know you're paying for Hulu, Netflix, and Paramount Plus? Like, trust me, you don't need all 3 of those. Can we get rid of 2 of those for me, please? And then we say, I know you feel like you can't start investing, but let's do an automated investment of just $10 a week from that paycheck, $10 every other week. Just start somewhere. And we're encouraging them into these, just low cost ETFs for now. Let's get the money in there. Let's let compounding get to work, and let's let the machine start working. So eventually, as they build up that net worth, right, they graduate to someone like yourself and go from there. That is the trajectory of a typical Moola member.
Yeah. So there's 2 things that I just want to talk concretely about, and this is directly from the Moola website. So there's visual budgeting, and then there's this personal financial scoreboard. I want you to, what goes into the scoreboard, and talk about visual budgeting.
So both can go hand in hand. I can share both in a quick little paragraph. It's back to that instrument panel. What can I actually see? It sounds so simple, but to see my statement, and on my statement, green is money in, red is money out, pluses and minuses. I have a beautiful bar graph in there that shows, hey, January, the green was higher than the red. That is a great month, Jason. I realize it sounds like I'm talking to a 3rd grader or something, but honestly, we need that level of transparency sometimes in our finances. And then the other aspect of it is the pocket goals. So the budgeting aspect is happening all in real time. You're a business owner, so you get it. No one loves the end of the month when it's time to start reconciling QuickBooks. Like, reconciling QuickBooks is like my least favorite thing to do. We are doing real-time reconciliation, and they're budgeting without them even realizing. So how Moola actually works, and this is one of the features you can turn on. It doesn't have to work this way, but if you want this level of guardrails, you can turn that on, is essentially you have a debit card, and you can keep in your spending pocket whatever amount of money you want, and that's for your debit card. We recommend people keep $100, $200 in there. That's it. The rest you keep in your pockets, which is a detached account from that debit card. So if there's ever fraud or anything like that, I got $100, $200 there. It's really no big deal, especially on a debit card. You've got to really watch fraud at gas stations and those sort of things. Then when I'm going out to that nice dinner with my wife, I go on the Moola app, I open up my food or my dining pocket, I transfer $100 from there into my spending account. I hand the waiter or waitress my Moola card. It goes through. I instantly reconciled it though, because Moola knows it came from the food pocket, and whatever's left over will go back to the food pocket after tip, after a few days, and everything else is reconciled through. And unlike QuickBooks, where I have to wait until, the end of the month to reconcile everything, that just got reconciled in real time. So I can now see, wow, I spent how much at Olive Garden, right? Or I spent how much wherever I went. It's a wake-up call for people. The silly example of Netflix, Hulu, and Paramount Plus, like, it sounds silly,
Not
but it's so realistic. It's so,
not silly.
so many people have that. Yeah, exactly.
So my dad told this story. He told the story 1,000 times. I grew up with, my parents had nothing. My dad lived in, if you drive across the Midwest of the country and you see one of these gray old houses, the roof has fallen in, that's the kind of place my dad lived in. Like they would stop and live in that place and kind of build it back up. And anyway, so he would tell the story about when he went to college, everyone would go out and he would say, okay, I got $6 for the rest of the month. And he would go out and he'd have a beer and he'd have another beer. And then he'd have to redo his entire budget for the rest of the month every time he went out because he just didn't have any money. I love this about the app that you're actually saying, okay, it's in a pocket and your awareness of what you're spending happens before you spend it. There's a management process there.
It sounds bad. We're trying to create a little bit of pain around it. We're trying to do kind of the opposite of what Amazon did.
Mindfulness.
There you go. I like that. Use your word, mindfulness around it, because Amazon takes away mindfulness because I can do one click buy it now. My card's on file. They know where I live, and somehow a drone delivers it in 2-3 hours. I mean, it's ridiculous. Yep. This, like you said, causes you to go, wow, I finally just hit my goal on that. Do I really want to move that money out and have to start saving again? It produces the mindfulness around it. Great. Very, very well said.
Yeah. I think that's great. I'm going to go down a different avenue here. There's been a lot of research on the benefits and the limits to financial education and financial literacy. Have you read that? The limits, like you can teach kids all about financial literacy, but then, they go to college, they don't have another course in financial literacy. They graduate, they get a job, they get handed a 401k and insurance. And these are the things you got to sign up for your new job. And they forgot everything. So you need to have ongoing. So what does Moola do?
That's a really great analogy. And we saw it all the time in aviation. Someone would learn to fly. And unfortunately, the FAA doesn't require you to do a recheck, but every 2 years. You could learn to fly today, be current for the next 2 years, having never touched an airplane. Like that's dangerous, right? And it's no different if somebody gave you the hold of an IRA or you inherited some money, things that should be a blessing. And now you're like, you don't have that literacy with it. So again, back to the premise of Jim Rohn, knowledge isn't power, it's potential power. So how do we continue to incentivize? One of the things on that, probably more like the 6-month type roadmap, is starting to gamify this education. Hey, Jonathan just completed this course and earned this, and here's his feedback on this, and he's got his gold star. Remember, our demographic is 25 and 30-year-olds. We gamify anything. It's going to do, quite well from that standpoint. Everything's on the app. By the way, it's vertical video, so it's easily consumable right there while they're in the subway, while they're in the Uber, whatever they're doing, walking the dog, at the gym. They can easily consume this. That's the other big aspect. You mentioned someone goes to college and they forget things. It's an accessibility thing. Those textbooks were expensive. They're collecting dust somewhere, whereas I'm in their pocket, right? I can send them a push notification that a new course is out there. And then the real big aspect of all of this, if I wanted to share maybe a 3-year type vision, I know I said we're going to let the customer steer it, but picture this with me. This doesn't exist just yet for Moola, but this is kind of where we want to take things. I know that our customer lives in Naples, Florida, right? They went through the KYC process. I know that's where they live. Since I'm also their banking partner, I know that their rent is around $2,200 a month. I can use a large language model to say, okay, what is the average rent in Naples? Well, for a 1, 2, and 3 bedroom, it's actually this, and you could be overpaying. Imagine if I sent you a push notification and say, hey, I know your rent's $2,200 a month, but we've partnered with, Zillow, or I'm making stuff up now, and here's 3 listings that might meet your criteria, and they would save you $200 a month. But let's do the math. What does a move cost? Is that move worth saving just $200 a month? And actually, no, it's not. It's better just to stay where you're at and wait till your lease is up, and then we'll make the move. Like, these are the scenarios I want to run people through. We are inundated every day with, should I buy a car or should I lease a car? Right? I mean, you and I kind of know that right answer to everything, but people are attracted to low payments with the lease and the new car, and it smells good and everything else. But at the end of the day, you should really buy a 3-year-old car that's already depreciated a little bit. And I'm not against auto loans, but can you put 50% down, right? That's the kind of education we want to start sharing with people and doing it in real time when we know they're shopping for a car or their car. We can see what their car payment is because we see it going to Wells Fargo, Auto Group for $600 a month and go, there's no way you need $600 a month worth of a car.
How many lessons do you have up? And do you actually teach the same lesson more than once?
You have to, because things get buried. Some headlines, it from posts and podcasts, all the time. Some headlines just capture people. You can have the greatest content in the world in there, but if the thumbnail or the heading or whatever it is doesn't capture people. So I bet in 80% of the videos, I probably mention automate your savings and how important it is. And to those who watch every video, maybe I sound like a parrot, but to someone, it's going to finally click that one time. So yes, you have to continue to teach the same things over and over. Back to your college example, they may use rote memorization to get through final exams, and that's not a deep enough understanding to really go out and apply it when they inherit $100,000 from grandpa and go, oh man, this is awesome, but I'm almost kind of nervous because what do I do with it now?
What's the feedback like from the users?
It's really, really good. So my wife and I both teach in the classes. We kind of co-lead some as well. And what's even more fascinating is the questions we get asked. I don't know how often you run into this, but I've been really on a big push lately, and you see this a lot in having mindfulness in your money. This negative mindset, like there's like this poverty spirit that some people have that they just believe they are destined to be poor, and that's why they believe they can't save. And just helping pick someone up and dust them off, like our support team, that's what they do the most of. honestly. It's just encouraging somebody, hey, you got this. No, $5 a week isn't insignificant. It's going to add up. Just let compound interest take hold and give it time. Stay the course, right?
So a very specific question, and I don't know if you are in the business of investment advice or not, but there's a lot of noise in the investment advice world. I wrote a book about this, Mindful Investing. When you're teaching about investing, what's the method? Like, what are you teaching?
You and I are cut from the same cloth. I am not a hot stock chaser. I am, at the end of the day, a fundamentals, more of a technical type guy is the approach I take. We are not encouraging people to invest in sexy companies. No one's investing in NVIDIA or Tesla or yes, they're companies, sorry, we're looking at things like Procter & Gamble, or I could list a Ford, right? Just took a little dip with all their EV issues and everything else. We're investing in just a lot of America's pastime kind of companies, not these hot stocks that we're chasing because, and I know you live this every day, you have to help people take emotion out of it. Well, my brother-in-law has a Tesla, so they must totally be a great company. And he bought a Tesla, so I'm going to buy their stock. But that doesn't mean Tesla's a great company, right? Yes, Elon is polarizing and all these things, but that doesn't mean it's a great investable company. But it's going up. Well, let me explain to you why the market goes up and down. It goes up and down because of people making rash decisions like you're about to go make, right? Let's look at the fundamentals.
Right. You are talking about individual stocks, though, not ETFs or that sort of.
So we encourage about 80% of the portfolio to be in a low-cost ETF, mimic the S&P 500, take the Warren Buffett approach. You're not smarter than Wall Street. Now, within the S&P 500, are there 2 or 3 outliers that help the S&P 500 reach that 8% benchmark each and every year? Absolutely. Let's go hunt those boys down, right? Not NVIDIA, not the others. Let's go look for those. And they're not always the sexy companies. We want some dividend growth and everything else. But at the end of the day, most people are just pushed right into an ETF, typically mimicking the S&P 500.
People that listen to me long enough know that I'm going to say don't do any individual stocks, but I also do, with 10% of my own money, I do some more specialty.
Exactly what we talked about.
20% is too much, but for me, it's whatever. We're quibbling over the little.
You're spot on. We're on the same page.
There's an enormous amount of noise out there, and I like to ask, and you probably know this if you listen to the episode, I like to ask everybody to simplify things for us. So if you're meeting with one of your users and they're like, I can't get started, what is one thing that you would tell them to do today that will make a difference in their both personal and financial success?
Sure. Assuming it's a Moola member, the most important thing, and we didn't talk about this yet, is to activate what we call our spare change feature. This sounds so small, but you and I go out and get a coffee and it's $6.95. We use our Moola card. We appropriately transferred money over to our spending. Moola is going to charge you $7. $6.95 goes to the coffee shop. 5 cents goes into the pocket of your choice or pockets of your choice. College savings account, dream vacation, dining, whatever you want. And people go, Jason, it's 5 cents. There's no way. Trust me. Small seeds grow into big trees is what we teach. And we actually have a metric on their scoreboard that says, here's how much you've saved using spare change. And most people look at it and go, what do you mean I've saved $120 this year by saving nickels and dimes and quarters? You'd be amazed, right? What people can really set aside. So when someone comes to me, like you said, I just can't afford to get started. I can't afford to invest. I can't afford to save. Let me tell you, you're going to Starbucks, three times a week. Let's cut, a few of those out. I'm going to go buy you a Keurig is what I'm going to do. And when you use your card, turn on your spare change feature.
Maybe this is a roadmap idea, but could I say, hey, if that coffee is $6.95, could you charge me, $8 and put $1.05 in that? Can I set it up so it's doing
that's
that?
Kind of a future roadmap idea. It was from a development standpoint, it was hard enough just to do and then get the banks and our partners and everything else to agree to just that. But we've got that going now. But yes, can I add 10% on top of that? But there's other caps on that too. What if I buy a TV at Best Buy? I don't want to round up 10% because that could be $80 on my $800 TV. So you got to kind of put a cap on it. So there's some algorithmic things we're talking through to make that happen under a certain dollar value, those kinds of things.
That's one thing that they should do, turn on the spare change feature. What's one thing that they're probably doing that if they stop doing right away would actually give them greater personal financial success?
It is those unnecessary expenses. I mean, you've had several guests on here and they all kind of talk about the same thing, but one day it's going to really click for somebody. It is the Hulu, the Netflix, the Paramount Plus. It is the Starbucks every single day when you could be making a coffee at home. Like my wife and I are very blessed and I still love a peanut butter and jelly sandwich for lunch, right?
Do you really?
Absolutely. Again, that goes back to where we started by, pastime growing up, that was lunch, right? That was it. And it's comfort food nowadays. So yes, and we still go out and we can do nice things because we're blessed. But I still love my comfort food, my peanut butter and jelly sandwich. I'll probably have one as soon as we're done here, right? Like that's thing. So I don't know how much you see what like financial influencers are doing. I try not to look at it, but the big trend right now is look poor. You got to look poor. You got to do this. And I'm thinking like, while I can respect that a little bit, I'm really big into mindset. And I really think you need to believe in yourself that you can actually do this. And if you look poor and you start feeling poor, you're going to stay poor. Now, I'm not saying go buy a Louis Vuitton just because you want to have a little swag and feel good about it. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just saying like, my dad always said, believing in you starts with you, Jason. So do that.
That comment, look poor. So I think that there is a subset of people on, specifically influencers, social media, who've been very successful, make a lot of money. And I think that message is for them. Like, don't be an ostentatious tool, right? But I remember when I was coming up, the very first job at Dean Witter, I was trying to be a broker. They said, wear a nice suit, put on a nice tie, dress like you're going to be the manager someday. Dress like for the role you want. Look up, not down. And it's an interesting difference in stories we have because of social media. I think we get this message.
I totally agree. And again, I don't want people to stretch and run down to Louis Vuitton or Gucci because they feel like they need a Gucci suit. I'm not saying that. You can go to Joseph A. Bank and get just a nice suit, right? Nordstrom off the rack, right? Exactly.
Yeah. That's where I got all my suits in the early days. We're coming to the close here, but I want to, just for wrap up, I like to go personal again. So what was the last thing you changed your mind about?
Wow. The last thing I changed my mind about, it's kind of deep. It was actually selling our business. I obviously changed it back to selling it. It was my baby for 16 years, started from nothing. I'm talking like you nursed it, you weaned it, you did everything. And like to sell it it wasn't about the money. It wasn't about anything. Like there was just so much emotion tied up in, almost lost that business before. It saved us many a times. Like it took on a life of its own. And I don't know if that's healthy or not, but after 16 years of doing something and then saying, okay, I've got to reinvent myself now, right? Because so those kind of things, that's tough. Like, what am I going to go teach now? How can we take everything I've learned and use it to impact the greater good? And that's the nexus that brought us to Moola. So I'm thankful we still stuck by that decision, but I changed that decision quite a few times on some sleepless, restless nights.
Me too. When I went through merger of my company, I had the same sort of up and down zigzag. And do I do this? Do I not do this? It's really hard because it is your baby. 20 years, it's your baby. If you could get the truth about any question, about your future, about life, and all you had to do is ask, what would you ask?
Wow. I really like this question. The truth about anything. It is my mission to make sure I'm doing my God-given purpose, right? I don't want to waste my limited time on this earth doing something I'm not supposed to be doing, right? I just, if we could talk to God or get the truth, whatever it is, like I would want to make sure that I'm on the path that I'm supposed to be on. Because some days it feels like it and some days it doesn't sometimes, right? We all go through that. And that is that mental exercise you have to go through. But it'd be awesome to just have somebody come down, pat you on the back and say, you're going the right way, kid. Keep it up.
You're on the right path. Just keep going forward.
Super.
Good luck. Yeah, that's wow. So tell people how they can connect.
Sure. So all over social media, it is Moola Copilot. I had to work in the aviation terminology in there as well. So anywhere from TikTok to YouTube, doesn't matter. Moola Copilot. You can see some of those videos we were talking about. I release a lot of them on social media, not just within the app, kind of some trailers of some of that training course related content. So they could really go in there and see all of that as well. And the website is moo.la, Moola.
Very cool. Jason, thanks for coming on. We're going to put all that stuff in the show notes for sure. And I just really appreciate the conversation and the mission.
I appreciate you, my friend. Thank you so much for your time today.
Thanks for listening. Full show notes for each episode, which includes a summary, key takeaways, quotes, and any resources mentioned, are available at mindful.money. Be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And if you're enjoying the content and getting value from these episodes, please leave us a rating and review at ratethispodcast.com/mindful money. We'll be sure to read those out on future episodes.